Could you expect me to rejoice in the inferiority of your circumstances?
And those are the words of a gentleman. From the first moment I met you, your arrogance and conceit, your selfish disdain for the feelings of others, made me realize that you were the last man in the world I could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
Century after century, the ideas of love have been imagined and reimagined in every culture as socio-cultural values change incessantly. From the 18th century to the 20th century, literary works unveil different versions of love, which in many ways go hand in hand with gender perceptions against the backdrop of colonial Britain.
Know what I feel. I'm yours, heart and soul. Run away with me. What value will there be in life if we are not together?
One of the most well-known English novels ever written, Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe, is a threshold for a long list of many British colonial novels to come. After a detailed account of his adventure on the deserted island, Crusoe eventually made it home to Great Britain. Yet, he could not care less to spare the readers a few sentences about his family. While Friday and the European castaways were richly included, no names of his wife and children were mentioned. I married, and that not either to my disadvantage or dissatisfaction, had 3 children, 2 sons, and 1 daughter, said Crusoe at the end of his journal. The narrative ignores and pushes aside the slightest glimpse of romance. Love and women are depicted as unnecessary, very much like the era when it was written, the 18th century, which marks the establishment of Imperial Britain on the cruel endeavors of the transatlantic trade, where human slavery was the priority for the flourish of the empire. Coming to the 19th century, Robert Michael Ballantyne's The Coral Island explores masculinity on the homosocial island society. In Victorian England, where young boys were not encouraged to identify with their mothers, it was through the eyes of 3 British boys, Ralph Rover, Jack Martin, and Peterkin Gay, that homoerotic nostalgia and homosocial fantasy for the lost innocence and possibilities of boyhood shone. Without the attentive eyes of the adults, the 3 boys, as well as the readers, freely learn what it means and how to be a proper British man in the imperial society. There was, indeed, no note of discord whatever in the symphony we played together on that sweet Coral Island, and I am now persuaded that this was owing to our having been all tuned to the same key, namely, that of love. Yes, we loved one another with much fervency while we lived on that island, and, for the matter of that, we love each other still. Written in the late 19th century, She, A History of Adventure by H. Rider Haggard, white male masters at the heart of the novel, Ludwig Horace and Leo Vinci, are depicted as helpless and passive when it comes to their interplays with the never-before-seen female master, Aisha. Both characters associate the notion of love with female sexuality, and that they possess no ability to challenge it. Even after Aisha's death, Horace and Vinci continue to long for her love and await her return. Female sexuality is portrayed as an inescapable addiction, a dangerous trap that lures males in and destroys their sense of self and reasoning. For women, flee from them, for they are evil, and in the end will destroy thee. Published in 1847, Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre shows that dreamy romance is possible, but only for the privileged white women. I have for the first time found what I can truly love. I have found you. You are my sympathy, my better self, my good angel. I am bound to you with a strong attachment. I think you good, gifted, lovely, a fervent, a solemn passion is conceived in my heart. It leans to you, draws you to my center and spring of life, wrap my existence about you, and, kindling in pure, powerful flame, fuses you and me in one. On the other hand, Mr. Rochester's wife, Bertha, who happens to be of Creole origin, is well hidden in the attic. While Jane is virtuous and just, Bertha is savage and insane. Hence, A woman like Bertha does not deserve love, let alone a place in society. In the late 19th century, Joseph Conrad wrote a thought-provoking novella, Heart of Darkness. Here, love is portrayed as a form of admiration and reverence. Marlowe's love for Kurtz blossom as he realizes that Marlowe is indeed distinct from other colonizers he has known. He is a colonizer who embraces the entirety of humanity, a colonizer who acknowledges the wrongdoing of colonization and finds no excuse for the imperial hypocrisy. He hated all this, and somehow he couldn't get away. Simultaneously, the female is reflected through a patriarchal mirror where the truth is the experience that only men can handle. Male is the mere gender that fully understands human conditions. Unlike men who are reasonable and realistic, women are too sentimental and delirious. Therefore, romance is one of those silly ideas conjured by them, women. It's queer how out of touch with truth women are. They live in a world of their own, and there had never been anything like it, and never can be. It is too beautiful altogether, and if they were to set up it would go to pieces before the first sunset. Fast forward to the 20th century, another male-dominated novel by Rudyard Kipling, Kim, sketches the pictures of gender understandings behind the curtains of colonialism and cultural and political mores of the colony. Though women have some roles in the novel, they are not the focus of the narrative. They appear as prostitutes or providers rather than objects of romantic interest. The woman of Shamlet and the widow of Kolu do get respectful treatment from Kipling, but essentially the male-slash-female relationship is a mirror image of the colonizer and colonized relationship. With minor roles in the novel, yet the female characters are portrayed as deceitful, and as a hindrance to the higher aims of men. Whether men are in search of spirituality or greater political eminence, women happen to be presented as obstacles in their path to excellence rather than as helpmates. Published in 1984, E.M. Forster's A Passage to India questions whether platonic love between the colonizer and the colonized is possible. All the main characters, whether the Indians or the British, share the same worldview through which they position India as a passage for them to form their nationalist identities along with several transracial relationships. Because of clashing notions of nationalism, their platonic love is filled with distrusts, misunderstandings, and expectations. Spanning centuries of British colonial novels, various representations of love prove that love itself is very much a social construct. In Imperial Britain, where a patriarchal regime was on the thrones, women were merely distorted images reflected through the male eyes. As women were not necessarily in the picture, love was not perceived as a romantic tale between men and women. Love was rather imagined in the context of Imperial Britain, where the expansion of the empire and other spheres that came with it were much more of concern. Since then, we have been reinventing and will continue to reinvent love through countless narratives and forms.
And I just love you, baby, so bad.